Putin has created this kleptocratic, deeply corrupt regime that can only maintain its financial and political power around a clique of people around him by making sure that countries on their border cannot develop in any free, democratic, and prosperous way. Morning.
It's not a good morning in lots of respects. How gloomy are the prospects, do you feel, for Ukraine? We had a very downbeat assessment from a former NATO commander that said it looks like he's going to take Ukraine. He may have his eyes on NATO countries. This is the most significant event since the Second World War.
It is the most significant event in Europe since the Second World War. Absolutely, this is a member of the United Nations Security Council, permanent member of the UN Security Council, charged with maintaining international peace and security in the world, deciding unprovoked to invade on a massive scale a neighboring country, no doubt with great loss of life to come. And so that is something we haven't seen. We haven't seen that in the world since 1945. And it's an immense event, and it changes the world. Things do look very grim for Ukraine because, as we've discussed on this program before, his plan, Putin's plan, well, it's what I wrote in my column. I have to say, sadly, last week, which is to invade on three sides and on the inside, no doubt, and to move very quickly. To cut off large parts of Ukraine. So I'm not surprised to hear tanks driving towards Kiev. I think they will try to disable the ability of the Ukrainian government to function very, very quickly and be aiming to do that in the next 2 or 3 days. So it's an extremely grave situation.
I asked the former Russian ambassador, the ambassador of the UK to Russia, this. This is clearly Putin's responsibility and fault. Obviously, he's the agent in all of this. Have we appeased him? Have we opened the door to him? Richard Sheriff, the general, said we've basically downgraded our army for years and years and years and years, and Putin spies weakness and he can exploit it. When he started making these noises, we imposed very little sanctions. He spies weakness and will exploit it. Is that what's happening? Has the West allowed him to get to this position, do you feel?
Well, it's not our fault in the West. I mean, we have a very open democratic society, and we debate all the options and whether we could have done something to avert it, and that is quite right. But this is not something which somebody in the West has inadvertently brought about. This is a man, in effect, a dictator in his country, who has decided himself that he is going to do this irrespective of the human consequences, and what he objects to is the existence of a free people who want to determine their own future on his border, because their freedom is a threat to him. So it's not the West's fault. If you go back now and think, should things have been handled in a different way? Well, then there are lots of things where you can say that, that Ukraine shouldn't have been offered membership of NATO in 2008, but they're not given membership of NATO. They've been left in limbo, which leaves them in an extremely difficult situation. And indeed, had everybody known Putin was going to do this, well, many efforts to improve relations wouldn't have taken place in recent years. There should just have been a tougher line all along. Don't mess with any neighboring country or you'll be in big trouble with all of us. So I think, one can always go back over history, but it's not our fault in the West that Putin has created this kleptocratic, deeply corrupt regime that can only maintain its financial and political power around a clique of people around him by making sure that countries on their border cannot develop in any free, democratic, and prosperous way. He has created this crisis, not the Western world.
William Hague, let's talk about what's happening today, though. We keep talking about what can we do to stop Vladimir Putin. So nothing we've done so far has stopped him. The invasion of Ukraine is in progress as we speak. There's a Cobra meeting going on right now, and Boris Johnson's going to update Parliament later on. What do you think? Actually, this is day one of who knows how many days. This is an important day, and it's important to set the tone, I suppose. So what do we as a country have to come out and say? And what do we as a country have to come out and say we are going to do?
Well, you're quite right. This is day one, and on day one, a lot of important things have to happen. At least four things I can think of. That if I was still in government and on my way to that Cobra meeting, I'd have that list in my mind. The first is humanitarian. You've been hearing on this program about people on the move. Well, hundreds of thousands or even millions of people are going to end up somewhere, and they are going to need a lot of looking after. And we have a big aid budget in this country. Well, this is what it is for. So first of all, there's that humanitarian mobilization to be done. Second, to impose before the end of today the biggest and most comprehensive package of sanctions on Russia that has ever been seen, so that the promise of that is fully fulfilled. And that will have to be pretty big and sweeping in order to match up to that promise. Third, there's the issue of, is there any military aid? Ukraine's not a NATO country, and we won't be sending our armed forces to defend them. But is there any other military aid which, even at this stage, would help the Ukrainians and to reduce loss of life in the Ukrainian armed forces in particular? And fourth, there's the diplomatic scene, because it's vital this is debated immediately at the United Nations Security Council in New York, and that there is a vote to condemn this, and that therefore nations around the world have to say where they stand. What is China's excuse for having Putin's back? Are they really going to support or to acquiesce in one sovereign country invading another? Is that Chinese foreign policy now? So countries have to be put on the spot. So that all of those four things, that's day one, morning one of this invasion. That's what the government needs to be tackling.
That's very comprehensive, and I'd like to believe that's what's been going on in Cobra in the last couple of hours.